3 points. At pwede rin makuha ni Sir Patrick to para sure win na talaga siya. Number 9 would be worth 3 points. And number 10 would be worth 3 points also. Para may chance na makahabol dito. Para lang thrilling. The unfair kay Sir Patrick. Pero still. So next question. What is that? If you input that to Excel and yun yung values. You may now answer. Huh? Really? Okay. Sorry, make it yung E11, make it B1. Sorry. It should be B1. Hindi ko na-edit, sorry. Instead of E11, it should be B1. Anyway, sige. Since, okay. Okay, since medyo error from our part, consider na lang yung sumagot ng unang nagsagot ng error or reference, which is Sir Patrick. Okay. Sir Patrick with points. Okay. So, ayun. So, yun. So, last question, now let's say 5 points na siya. Para may chance 5 points na siya. Ayan. Pero sure win na siya. Ayan. Ang tamang sagot sana is sparahe. So, pero may error. So, yun. So, for the last question, what is the answer to this? Ano matawag dito? Formula? You may now answer. Ano pa sagot siya? Okay. Okay. So, yan. May nakasagot na si Sir JP with the 5 points, number 10. Though lamang pa rin si Sir Patrick with 1. So, ang scoring is may 1 point si Sir Rolando. May 2 points si Sir Rolando. Si Sir Patrick ay may 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus 9. 9. Si Sir JP ay may 6. So, ang clear winner is si Sir Patrick James Lee Gonzaga. So, we will contact you, sir, with the answer. Pero ang tamang sagot pala here, sorry, is 6. So, yeah. So, congratulations, Sir Patrick. We will message you along the session. So, please be aware, please be alert lang. So, yeah, thank you very much. And I hope you enjoyed and learned some things. So, yeah. So, we'll proceed with our activity. What's happening? Ayan. Congratulations again, Sir Patrick. Ayan. I hope everyone is revved up for our next 3 speakers. Our second speaker for today and the first for this afternoon would deliver a crash course on project management on making things happen. She is the Assistant Vice President for Customer Experience Designer for digital channels of Union Bank of the Philippines. Let us welcome to the spotlight Ms. Colleen Faye Toledo. Good afternoon, Ma'am Colleen. Ayan. I'll co-host you po, ma'am. Sorry for that. Colleen. Yeah. Kindly try again po. Ayan.
All right, there you go. Thank you. So, can you guys hear me? Is my audio okay?
You're clear po, ma'am.
All right, my video is okay then, no?
Yes po.
Okay, so before I start, allow me some time to share my screen. Okay, let me know if you guys can see it. Okay, it's visible. I need a thumbs up
Yes, ma'am. We can see
or
po hello
a
and
chat.
Queen.
Okay, great. Okay, so good afternoon, guys. I'm back. For those who were there last Saturday, I'm the same person who was gonna give you a crash course on project management. So if you were there during the online town hall, I gave a very succinct version of this. This afternoon, I'll be sharing a more detailed or a more technical version of what it really takes to manage projects. So, allow me to introduce myself again. I'm Colleen Toledo. I work in Union Bank as a CX designer. I graduated from UP Diliman and I have been in the banking industry for 10 years already. I started my career as a management trainee and I found my niche in leading projects and in making things happen. So, as I mentioned, I'll be giving you a project management 101. So, this is in no way a preparation for any kind of certifications that you guys are may be interested in. And yes, this career or this role actually entails actually has a lot of certifications. No, right now, if you are working as an unofficial project manager, meaning you're assigned to lead projects or organize events, then this may be helpful for you. I hope that at the end of this session, you'll be able to use the things that I will be sharing in the things that you're working on, or if you will be tasked to handle statistics or data science and analytics projects moving forward. And by the way, I'm also an instructor, an SP 1004. I think there's still a little bit of time if you're interested to go check out our course. The templates and more details are available there. Okay, so to start off, I like to always begin with the formal definition of a project. This is just to set the foundations of what I'll be sharing moving forward from here. So, according to the Project Management Institute, a project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. So, the keywords here are it's temporary and you're creating a unique thing. So, luckily for us, most things can be considered as projects. You may be building your house, renovating your apartment, or organizing an event, or you're planning your wedding. You can actually apply most of the things here to making that happen for you. So, now that we know what a project is, no, who are project managers? No, so this actually sums it up. Some people may think that project managers don't do anything. We just like to follow up, or we just like to send emails, or we're highly paid. But most often than not, really, we are like this. No, what I really do. We're oftentimes fighting fires, and this is basically a representation of our daily lives. We're surrounded by fires that we need to put out or problems that we need to solve. But who are really what do we really do now as project managers? So we're essentially change agents. So the project managers make the project goals their own. They use their skills, their expertise, or their discarte to inspire a sense of shared purpose in the project team. We're also very comfortable with complexity. So it's also can be known that project management is not for the faint-hearted because of the things that you have to deal with on a daily basis. Ang daming problema na kailangan isolve. And the project manager must be able to readily shift their focus from big picture to small but critical details, no, and know when to switch on each. Lastly, but most importantly, is project managers should have great people skills. So actually, project managers or PMs, sometimes the P there means people managers, because in order for you to make things happen, you need to be able to influence and persuade people, no, or rally the team towards your common goal. So now we'll discuss the two famous frameworks in project management, and the context here is my career have always been in managing more technical projects, IT projects. I've handled some data science and statistics projects as well in the organization that I'm in, and so I'll be sharing the two different kinds of project management framework and what the industry is using right now. So let's start with the traditional one, or what we also call the waterfall, or a more linear sequential project life cycle. I think this is the more famous one because this has been around the longest. The second one, the current one is still a young framework, no. So this one, just like a waterfall, it represents that the activities in the project must be done in sequence, meaning one has to finish before the next can start. No? So similar to this kind of photo. The next one, the one I've been saying, is the more young one, is the agile framework. No? So this one, as opposed to the waterfall, it's represented by a wheel. So it means that you can continuously iterate on your development and testing processes. So I'll be discussing what the pros and cons of each, no, starting with the advantages of traditional project management. So the traditional or the waterfall one, the advantage is that this is best to use in simple to less complex projects. Meaning, if you already know what you want clearly in a project, then you can do the traditional approach. This is very heavy in documentation, and it's also very helpful in managing dependencies. Actually, this framework is the foundation for the PMP certification, or project management professional, and it's actually a very thick book with a lot of prescriptions for documentations. No? But the limitation of this is that it's not ideal for large complex projects, meaning you still don't know the output that you want in that project. There's a lot of uncertainty and chaos in the requirements, and that's because it's very difficult to make changes along the way in a waterfall or traditional approach, and the testing can only happen at the end of the development, and hence there will be bugs along the way which are very expensive to fix. And the most hated limitation of waterfall is that you can only see the finished product at the end of the project, meaning the customer is only involved at the start, where we ask, okay, what do you need? Do you require some software or some data science models or statistical models, and then we only show that to them at the end. So that's the downside of traditional project management. Now, in agile project management, the advantage is that it's very focused on customer needs. So, unlike the first one, this one puts the customer at the center. The the customers' requirements are always considered, and are always put into work during the development process. The teams here are self-organized, meaning there's very little to no supervision expected. Note that the operative word is expected, no? And the process is incremental based, because again there will be wheels that you can continuously iterate, and customers have high visibility on the progress of the product, and I'll show you later on why that's the case for an agile project management. The limitations of this is that this framework, if you adapt to this, it requires quick decision making from a very strong product lead or project lead. And I'll talk more about roles later on. The project can easily go off track if without strong leadership and guidance. And it works best if you have dedicated project teams, meaning you don't share resources. And the project teams that you're working with are solely working for that specific project. But now in the virtual world, we've proven that it's actually it's still effective now using agile project management even if remote. But regardless of the framework, really, what entails project success is a combination of people skills and process skills. This is the simplest and the most perfect formula for project managers really out there. Because some they forget the people aspect of this. They're very heavy on the process. They know the ins and outs, but they forget that that they need the support of the people for the success of their project. And sometimes it's also the other way around. No, they're very great people skills, but they don't know the process of how do you do that in your organization. So that's why you need both for ensuring that you're successful. So now we head into Scrum, which is a framework under Agile project management. So Scrum is actually the most used right now in the industry, in the tech industry. It's also what I prefer personally, having worked on both frameworks. And this is also the thing that we're also following in our organization right now. So, what is Scrum? Scrum is a framework to address complex adaptive problems. So, this is the formal definition of that. Note that it's not a process nor a technique, but it's a framework where you can employ different processes for you to follow the prescribed framework. It's very lightweight, simple to understand. It can actually be explained by one picture or summarized by a picture, but it is very difficult to master. Now, why do we say that? Why is it difficult? That's because when I explain Scrum later on, it can be summarized by a picture, but when you put it into work, you realize that there's still a lot of processes that you need to also put in place for the principles to work. No, and that varies from organization to organization. So that's where the people skills naman will come in talaga as a project manager. Okay, so this is the photo that I was saying can be summarized to this. So the Scrum framework actually puts at the heart of it the people or the project team. So that's the all the Scrum events that are surrounding here. Are surrounds the three roles, which are the Scrum Master, product owner, and the development team. So I'll be spending some time here, no, because I'll be talking you through the different aspects here, so that may knowledge naman kayo moving forward. Okay. So you would notice that in the roles, there's no project manager, no, as an official role. Actually, the project manager as a role is from the traditional kind of framework. But here in Scrum, the work is actually split into these three roles, but it's more really leaning to the Scrum Master role. So the Scrum Master, sometimes in our organization, when we transformed to Agile, we became Scrum Masters. And that's because the most important role and the thing that you need to, I guess, take away from a Scrum Master role is that they remove your blockers. They're the people who are there to clear the pathway for all of the people in the team to continue on their projects as successful and as smoothly as they can. So again, their work is they remove impediments and they guide the entire project team to really uphold the Scrum principles. No? That's why they're called the masters of Scrum. The next important role, and this is actually where I'm at right now, is the product owner role. So the product owner role, like the name, owns the product. They're actually the voice of the customers. They are expected to know and gather the requirements that is needed for the project, and that they are the most important role, or the most important responsibility for a product owner is to know what to prioritize. So in a project, lalo na in an iterative one, where you're always continuously running on development, the product owner should know which one is the most important one that the development team will work on, and must be able to explain why that's important, no? The purpose of what you're doing. That's because the development team here actually has a prescribed size of 3 to 9 people only per scrum, per project team. No, the reason for that is it has to be that size for it to be manageable. Pa, if it's bigger than that, then it will be harder to facilitate the scrum events. No, the development team should comprise of everyone that is needed to make your project happen. So if your project is a software development for a mobile app, then you need to have your mobile developers. Then you need to also have your quality assurance resources, so those who will test. Um, if you have a project that involves data science models, then you need to put in your project team data science resources as well. And so that that rounds up the roles in a project team, and then they go into this outer circle, which is the sprint, which basically just means that it's a duration of time. So the sprint, it's not, but it came from the fact that it means running in small distances. So in Scrum, it means it's a duration of time that you have to adhere to, and that you commit to for you to do all of these four Scrum events. No, so in our organization, we use 2 weeks, so that we're standard across all project teams. No, but you could also do 3 weeks or 1 month sprint. It depends on the organization you're in or what you prefer, and what your project nature is also. But what's important is once you're set on your sprint duration, you have to always follow that. It doesn't mean that, oh, it's 2 weeks for now, and then next week let's try 3 weeks, and then 1 month naman next month. No, no, it has to be consistently at 2 weeks to build the rhythm also of the team. So what do you do in those 2 weeks? So it actually starts with the first one, that is sprint planning. So sprint planning is basically a meeting where all of the people here will sit down and go through what we call a product backlog. So the backlog is essentially just a laundry list of things that you need to do in the project. Laundry list, as in, can be bullet points. And this is prepared by the product owner. And the order, or ang pagkasunod-sunod niya, depends on which one is the most valuable. So the prioritization comes in the ordering of the product backlog. So that's the work of the product owner. So what happens during sprint planning is the entire dev team will look at the backlog and say, okay, from your list of 10, we can do the first 3 in the next 2 weeks. So if they commit to that, then that becomes their sprint backlog. So that's the output naman of sprint planning. So the sprint backlog, the team will consistently check on their progress every day for the next 2 weeks during daily scrum. So daily scrum is a 15-minute meeting. So it's time boxed, no? It shouldn't be more than that. If it's more than that, then it became an update meeting na. But the daily scrum just answers 3 questions, no? And everyone in the development team should speak and answer these 3 questions. What did you do yesterday? What did you do today? And what will you do and what are your impediments? Sorry. So what you did yesterday, what you'll do today, and what are your impediments or problems. So the important part there is for the scrum master to hear that if you have problems, then we'll help you solve and remove that for you. No? So that's daily talaga for the next 2 weeks. At the end of the 2 weeks, you'll go into a sprint review where you'll check what has been done, no, for the past 2 weeks. And when we say done, it's actually in quotation marks because the entire team has the freedom to define what your definition of done is. And this can vary from different project teams. No? Your project team could have a definition of done that as long as I have tested this, then it's okay. Another project team could say that as long as I have developed it, then that's done. And another could have a whole new different definition as well. But what's important here is that your definition of done should be agreed amongst yourselves or amongst the project team. And so that's what you will check your progress on during sprint review. So this is where the developers will present their progress, and the product owner will invite the stakeholders to see that, oh, hey, stakeholders or customers, this is what we've done so far. Is this something that you're looking for? And so at this point, this is where where I said earlier that the customers are always a part because they always see progress, no, during the 2 week sprints. And then the output of that is what we call the increment. Um, and then right after this one, as in the back, what we do is morning yung sprint review and then afternoon yung sprint retrospective. So sprint retrospective naman is it's a meeting where you answer 3 questions again. So it's longer than the daily scrum because this is where you check no kung okay ba yung naging performance nyo for the past sprint. So the questions that are being asked here is that what went well, meaning what were the things that really helped you accomplish your tasks, what were your issues or what didn't go well? Was the scrum master not helpful or someone in the dev team wasn't as cooperative as you want? And this is where you really have to express that. No? And the third one is what are the lessons that you learned? And so by doing that every 2 weeks, may opportunity talaga yung team to go and always refine their process. No? And because it's such a short duration, that means that it's usually faster to deliver what's needed also for you. Okay. And so, baka I've already lost you guys in the technicalities. Um, I'll now explain. So, how do you apply that in your projects or your day to day life? How do you now really make things happen as a person? And actually, I was lucky enough to have had the opportunity to apply my project management skills when I was planning my wedding, no, back in 2018. So it was so great that I was able to prove that, oh, the project management tools pala really helps you even outside your work. No, you can really apply that. So now I'll walk you through 10 steps on how you can practically apply the things that I discussed earlier. So the first one is you have to identify your project sponsor. So of course, this is in the context that somebody in your organization already said, na, "Hey, Arvil, please lead this project. No, I have an idea and I want you to lead it." So the first thing that you have to ask that boss or that person who told you to manage the project is, who is my project sponsor? Because the project sponsor is the one that has the biggest stake in the project. They will be your cheerleader, they will be your champions that will root for the project success. And they are the ones who will describe why you're doing the thing that you're doing. So the reason why I emphasize on understanding the why is because for you to be successful, you need to be able to communicate, no, the purpose ng ginagawa niyo to the whole project team so that it can also form part of rapport building, relationship building, and so they feel inspired to finish their tasks. No? So that's the first one. The next one is you have to create your charter. This is formal documentation. It's usually just one page. I have the template in SP 1004, and it basically just tells you that you are the project manager or you are the one leading this project to completion. And why is it important? No, why do I need a document to say that this is mine? And that's really helpful for you to share to your stakeholders that, hey, I have proof that I was entrusted or authorized to lead this project to completion. And so, parang wala nang ibang magtanong kung sino ba talaga yung nagli-lead. You have something in writing that proves that it's you. And so that's why we always prescribe this at the early stages of the project. Now, next is you can now start building the laundry list or the product backlog that I was describing earlier. So it comprises of the functional and the technical requirements, or what we call user stories. A user story is usually in this format. It goes with as a, and then who the end user is, could be as a customer. I want to, then you have to express the requirements here. It could be very high level, no? And then you express the benefits. So this one, if you write it in a list, then that is essentially your product backlog. Um, and you usually work on this with the entire project team that is assigned to you. Next is from that list, you can now decide on now what's the minimum viable product from here. What is it really what's the minimum thing that you can release or you can put out there that will meet or satisfy your customer requirements. No? What is it from your list of 10? Can it be just 5 items? Will that satisfy your customer requirements already? And that's where your role is to facilitate that discussion with your project sponsors, with your project team, to really understand what it is that you're doing. And again, this is where we go back to you as a project manager or the one leading the project should understand why, so that you could also help facilitate the identification of the MVP. And then once you've had that, then you can now prioritize according to the most value adding feature or user story. So again, you work as a team to identify what are the dependencies, what are the tasks that are needed to complete the user story. So we actually always go as a analogy, no, we always use a hamburger. So a hamburger, let's say a Jollibee Aloha burger, and then you slice that in half. What are the components of that burger? But you have the bread, you have the patty, you have the pineapple, and stuff like that. So those are the things that needs to be listed down like a product backlog. So if you slice your product in half, what are the components for you to deliver that? And once you have that, so you can now start your sprints, diba? From my discussion earlier, the input to sprint planning is the product backlog. So you can now follow the Scrum framework. You can agree on the Scrum events. When are you gonna do it? Is it a 2 week sprint? Three weeks or 1 month? And then you clearly define your roles and expectations, meaning, okay, in this project team, the product owner is this one. This is the development team, and then I'm the scrum master. So it's important to set that early on so that there will be no more questions down the line. And then your role now is to rally the team, no, to self-organize and to uphold the scrum principles, the picture that I showed earlier. Okay, now once the sprints are ongoing, because you're not part of the development team, no, so you're not actually doing the tasks, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do anything na once the sprint has started. That's because you're expected to be on top of everything. You have to always be aware of the progress of the project, and also the external factors that could affect the project. No, this is so that the project team can continuously focus on doing what it is that they need to do. And then, as you are aware of the things that are going on in your project, you are also expected to always be ready to adjust. So, circumstances may not always go as planned. And then, you, as the Scrum Master or project manager, must always be ready to decide to adapt quickly and to facilitate that decision within the team, and also to influence the stakeholders also of the decisions that you have done. Ninth here is communication. Communicate, and I don't say this enough, but it doesn't mean communication doesn't mean that you've already said your piece. Meaning I've already sent the email. I've already chatted this person. I've already set a meeting with this person. Then I've already communicated. Actually, no. My definition of communication is that the recipient should have understood what it is that you meant in the thing that you said. So again, no, slowly. Communication is about the other person or the recipient uh, and their understanding of what you said. It's important to have and to know that early in the project manager's career, is because oftentimes projects can go bad because of miscommunication. No? Miscommunication because you thought that you already said A, and then your stakeholder pala understood B. So you clearly weren't on the same page. And so communication here is about making sure that everyone that needs to be involved in your project are on the same page as you are, and you also as a person is on the same page as them. Lastly, but of course not the least, is to persevere, no, and repeat until fade. This is just a joke we do because in agile it's almost like you're continuously working on features and releases, and you always have to repeat the things that you do, you know, from the first one to the ninth one. You have to continuously improve as a project manager and as a team also for the project success. No, and yep, that's basically it. So the things that I mentioned earlier, I've covered the tips already last Saturday, but I've added a few technical terms that are also available in SP 1004. If you are now thinking about managing projects, or you are currently being asked to manage one, I hope that the things that I have mentioned here could help you. And I hope that some of you may also have found this inspiring and maybe some of you could think that, oh, maybe this is a role that I could explore. Then by all means, you can find me on ADP list by scanning this QR. You can find my profile. You can book consultations with me, and it's totally for free. No, I don't charge you anything. Or you can send me an email at cfmpuspas@gmail.com. So there, I think we have time for some questions. If you guys have something in mind, I'm available to answer.
Are there any questions from our participants? If there are, please kindly raise your hand or chat them in the chat box and wait to be acknowledged. Okay. If there are none at the moment, ma'am, I have a question. Ma'am, how
Go po.
different is program management versus project management? Or parang same lang
Mm.
sila, mas ano lang si isa ganun?
No, actually, they're very different. Program management kasi entails managing multiple projects that
Mhm.
belong to a certain goal. So, for example, you're working on a very big program like digital transformation, for example, or something that needs to have multiple projects in place. Then a program manager must be in place so that there are so that all the projects under it can go towards a common goal. So the things that you need to do as a program manager naman is not very different. It's just that the scope of what you're doing is bigger na. You're handling multiple projects, you're dealing with multiple people with different personalities, different goals, and there's basically more fires to fight in program management.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So we have a question here po from Christopher de la Peña on the chat. Any tips on people management? It's the
It's
hardest
the
part.
hardest part. That's true. It's really the hardest part, and it's something that in my early years, no, as a project manager, uh, nobody told me that I need to manage people pala. And so I had to learn on the job. So my tips, my number one tip uh, for you is to know your stakeholders and their level of influence to your project. So, di ba my number one tip was identify your sponsor. In the bigger course that I taught in Sparta, we actually advocate for listing down all the people that you need to work with. And you have to identify, okay, for each of this person, how influential are they to the success of my project? Or basically just listing down, okay, do I need to always involve this person or they can just be informed? You know, and usually can be written in a racy matrix, no. So I start off with that. Next is I go meet them one by one. So this is just my personal discard, no? I'm just sharing baka it could help you. So I go meet them one by one at the start of the project. I try to understand what their perspective is. Okay, so we're doing this project because this is what the company has envisioned us to do. What is your take on it? And so I ask for their perspective so that I can see that, oh, there's some stakeholders pala that are not on the same page as me, or baka I'm misunderstanding pala the goal of the project. And so that's where I can gauge na, okay, we are at the same page or we're not. If we're not at the same page, then that's where I realign my definitions with the stakeholders. So I try to understand bakit hindi kami on the same page. Baka meron definitions that I thought were the same with them. So for example, ang definition ko ng success ng project is just to get this out in production. But the definition of success of the stakeholder A is that the customers must be able to use it on a daily basis, diba? So at the onset, understanding that could already help you in designing how you are to manage your project. So there, if we are not aligned, then I go back to definitions. And then pag magkaiba nga kami ng definition, then me as a project manager should align, no, and adapt to the definition. Okay, so the next time I speak to this person, project success means ito. So that should be what I will communicate to this person. Okay, so that's for stakeholders. No? I also do the same for each of the project team members. So if the project entails software development, and then I'm tasked to handle mobile developers, testers, and I also spend time really talking to them one by one. So before nung physical pa or face to face, it's easier. No? You can just go to them and talk to them. Now it's really more intentional. You have to book a meeting with them, and then you have to discuss at a set time talaga. And the reason I do that is I wanted to build rapport to everyone who needs to work on the project. Why do I need to build rapport? Diba? Parang project manager naman ako, they have to follow me. No? So, no, actually, for you to have a harmonious or a successful project, you have to always think of the welfare din ng mga tao mo. Because hindi ka naman yung mismong gumagawa eh. You're not the developer. And you need the developer to actually do the things for you para mag-succeed yung project nyo. And so that's one of the unwritten rules of project managers talaga. So you have to spend time understanding and building that relationship with the people that you work with. So I agree, it's really the hardest part of project management. Um, if I have time pa no, Arvil, I'd like to share this
Yes,
ano lang,
you have ample
example.
time.
Ayan, sige. So, I'd just like to share this parang example in my early years as a project manager. I didn't, so this is the time I didn't know that communication and people management was important pala. So, I was managing this project. Sobrang delayed na niya. I was assigned in the middle of it, or the middle of the project kasi nag-resign yung project manager na original. And then, maraming issues, no? And then sabi nung project activities namin, we need to already be in testing. And so I said, okay, I'll communicate that by sending an email to everyone that says, okay, guys, we need to test from 7 p.m. To be determined. Meaning I didn't put an end date, an end time to when they will test. And so I didn't think much about it. Kala ko hindi naman siya issue. It became it became an issue pala. So when the testers came in to test, sobrang they were mocking me. They were saying that, oh, parang bakit naman walang end date or walang end time, no? Our time naman is not unlimited. And so that was my first taste of really thinking na, oh, okay, managing expectations, stakeholder and people pala talaga is very important. And so I'm lucky that I experienced that early on because I didn't repeat that now, of course, in the next projects that I've worked on. So yeah, hopefully that helps you, Christopher. Okay, we have another question here. What are the qualifications needed to become a project manager in the context of data science? What if I performed a project in a nonprofit org? Will that qualify me as project manager? Do where is it? Do employers need certain certification? How do I go about jump starting? Okay, so many questions, but I hope I can answer it in just a few sentences. No? So qualifications in the context of data science really differs per organization. In the bank, project manager that we consider is that you just need to have an experience in managing a project, whether that's technology or data science. It's always a plus na lang that you have had experience in data science project management. Another plus in if you like to be a project manager in data science is a very basic understanding of what data science is and what the purpose of that capability is on your in your organization. So for example, if you work as a data science project manager in a bank, why is data science important in that bank, no? So you have to understand muna that part. Okay, if you have performed projects before, then that's of course one of the things that we look into. It doesn't matter which organization, because I think during the interview process we'll just be talking about uh, experience in dealing with people. So me, when I hire, it's really more. I focus more on how this person really deals with people. Are they easily likable? Do they value building relationships, rapport? You know. So that if you have that interest in really and experience in managing people, especially difficult stakeholders, that's already a plus regardless of what your experience was before. Usually we don't require certifications. It's usually really based on just the projects that you have experienced and how well you can explain that to your hiring manager, no? How do I go about jumpstarting my career? I always advise, no, looking for an organization with a good program in helping career shifters. I'm lucky to be in an organization that really fosters that, no? So I came from knowing nothing about project management to experiencing it without formal training, and then eventually falling in love with it and my organization was there, helping me along the way, giving me the training that I need, and exposing me to the projects that really helped me grow also as a project manager. So there, and I also advise mga starting professionals to look for mentors, no, especially not just in your organization but also in the field that you are interested in. So if you're interested in data science, look for that person that you really idolize or want to become, and reach out and ask for mentoring. In project management, also the same. I also did that in the early years of my career. um, and I feel so old, by the way, saying the early years of my career, but I looked for a mentor, and I shadowed this mentor really in project management, and I learned a lot. And right now we're already colleagues. So from mentor to now colleagues, diba? So there. I hope that helps you, Louisa. Okay, another question. What are the skills we should work on if we want to be an effective project manager? Okay. The first one for me is really people. Again, may sound like a broken record, no? Because the process can be learned, and it's very different across organizations. So the people aspect is something that you can bring, regardless of the industry that you'll be working with. So really focus on learning how to build trust and how to build that relationship with a whole range of people. Could be top executives, or could be developers, or could be your peers. Um, if you really value putting in the work to build a relationship, then you'd be okay. Doesn't have to mean pala, by the way, that you have to be an extrovert because, oh, people skills need to be extrovert. No, actually, I'm an introvert. But I'm able to manage people, and actually it helps more if you're an introvert, because you understand where people may be coming from. Like some people may be shy to open up to you, and because you're an introvert, then you can relate, and you can devise different techniques on how to reach out and how to build that trust with the people. And so there, so first is people, and then next is understanding the project life cycle. What are the documentations needed, what are the details that you have to look into, and that again depends per project and per organization. So there, if there's anything that I would suggest you to start with, is really people first. Okay, these are really good questions. Are there any more questions? Okay, I think Arvil, that's it.
Okay, are there really no more questions? Huwag kayong mahiya. Ayan, sabi ni ma'am, introvert daw siya. So, maybe she'll understand kung nahiya kayo. Okay lang yan. Oh, joke. So, going once, no more questions? Okay, so yeah. So, thank you so much, Ma'am Colleen, for your time. Wait lang po. Where's my script? Sorry. Thank you so much, Ma'am Colleen. Ayan. Your topic was truly informative. Having a project management mentality would surely boon us, everyone, even on doing mundane things. Having logical thinking makes decision making easier, more efficient, and potentially more effective. Like yung example ni Ma'am Colleen kanina sa kanyang wedding planning, it's very practical, and sana magamit din natin yung knowledge na to when it comes to our own wedding plans. Someday, medyo. Ayan. With that, since our next speaker is not, I believe, not yet in our call, wala pa sa ating call, maybe we could take this opportunity to have a break for everyone's convenience. Ayan. So before we proceed, we will have a break while waiting for Sir Monty, our next speaker. He will talk about probability and probability distributions in the real world. So yeah. So again, we thank you, Ma'am Colleen, for your time and hope to see you soon. And hopefully, ma-apply namin yung mga tinuro niyo sa amin regarding project management. So yeah, thank you
Thank you
and
guys and good luck.
see you guys in 10 minutes or 5. See you in 2:15. So yeah, let's have a break. Thank you. Ian, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully, everyone is refreshed from our short break. So, we will now proceed with our session. Okay. Very good. So, yeah. So, with Ma'am Colleen's speech, we will now move on to the second part of our event, which is in commemoration to the 33rd Statistics Month, which was last October 2022, last month. This session is on the application of statistics and probability in organizations. So our third speaker, our second speaker for this afternoon, will be tackling probabilities and probability distributions in the real world. He is an assistant professor from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, Department of Industrial Engineering and Operations Research, where he also got his bachelor's and master's degree in industrial engineering. He is currently engaged as a developer and database admin for UP Diliman's HR management system. In addition, he works as a project manager for UP Diliman's University Transactions Automated Kit, or UP UTAK. He is also among the senior developers for the online consultation request and appointment, or OCRA system of UPPGH. He specializes in the areas of survey operations management, decision support systems, and discrete events simulation. Let us give the spotlight to Mr. Simon Anthony Lorenzo. Good afternoon, Sir Monty. Sir, maybe, uh, sir, we made you a co-host na. Can you try po to, yeah, yes, sir.
Ayan, sige. Good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction. Sige, so let me just share my screen. Ayan.
You can see your deck, sir.
Okay naman. Kita na yung screen and okay naman yung audio?
Okay naman po, sir.
Okay, sige. So, yeah, good afternoon, everyone. For this talk, I'll be discussing probability and probability distribution in the world. So, this talk will be, I'd say it's going to be light. Okay, hindi naman siya masyadong focus on the technical side of statistics and probability. As we all know, maraming computations involved if we go deep into statistics, if we go deep into probability. But for this session, I hope it's going to be light, entertaining, but at the end of the day, still useful and useful to your daily life. So yeah, without further ado, let's proceed with uh, my talk. And sige, so just a quick overview of what we'll be discussing in this session. Okay, so we'll discuss the basics of probability. Okay, we'll discuss the a priori versus a posteriori method of dealing with probability and probability distributions. Okay, we'll be discussing chaos, information, and probability and their relationships to one another. And finally, the applications of probability and probability distributions in everyday life. Okay, so this talk, as the title would suggest, would really focus more on the occurrences of probability and probability distributions in life. Um, there are a lot of instances wherein the applications or the occurrences of probability is straightforward. Okay, when we encounter, let's say, situations wherein we need to roll a die, maybe we're playing a game. Situations wherein we need to draw a card. Again, playing, siguro nagbabaraha tayo with other people. Or coin flip, kunyari, magde-decide kung saan kakainan. Yan. So, those are some examples of straightforward applications of probability, na without a doubt, na-encounter natin siya and it's easy to model. But I would argue that there are a lot more processes, there are a lot more instances in our daily lives where probability comes into play. Okay, so I would like to start with this statement. Luck affects us more than we realize. Okay? Luck, probability distributions affect us more than we realize. Some of you may agree, some of you may not. Okay, but I would like you to try to think about your current situation right now. Okay? So all of you are in this talk, right? Listening to me. Okay? That means you all have access to internet. That means you all have a way to turn on to access a computer, to turn on Zoom and listen to this talk. Okay? So that uh, those set of parameters, those set of conditions, I would argue are all probabilistic. So, lalo na sa Pilipinas, no, I would argue that any given time, there is a probability that the internet just randomly disconnects. Based on experience, yan sa akin eh. May times lang talaga na, I don't know, out of nowhere, nag-disconnect siya kahit hindi umuulan, kahit walang bagyo. And ako, even as I deliver this talk, nagtitiwala na lang ako na hopefully, hindi mangyayari yun. And that is probabilistic. So, the the fact that I'm giving this talk means that if you look at it at some perspective, sinuwerte ako na uh, hindi nag-disconnect, hindi loko yung internet ko at this moment. And same for you. No? So that's just one example. And if you think about it, your entire life is influenced by luck, is influenced by probability. So first of all, the family you are born into would influence majority of the factors affecting your life. So one obvious thing would be socio-economic class. So pag pinanganak ka, you don't get to choose your family, obviously. Okay? So pag pinanganak ka ng mahirap, pinanganak ka ng middle class, pinanganak ka ng mayaman, it's out of your control. And the entirety of your life will be affected just by that one occurrence. And again, probabilistic yun. So, swerte mo pag pinanganak ka mayaman. You're going to have a lot of money. Most likely, you won't need to work as hard as most other people. Okay? If pinanganak ka ng hindi ganun karami, well, you're going to have to adjust. Okay? And you're going to need to work harder than other people. Okay? The location of your home would be another thing. Okay? So it would determine yung access to like maybe schools. Okay? It would influence kung ano schools yung attendan mo, saan ka mag-work, anong resources yung may access ka. Okay? It would also determine, so since it determines your school, it would determine the quality of your education to some extent. It would determine after that yung quality of your work, the line of your work, and so on. Okay. So in school, probabilistic din yung maging classmates mo. Again, that would not be determined by you, right? So it's parang swerte lang kung may marami kang classmates na friendly, marami kang classmates na guwapo, maganda, maybe, to your advantage. Okay. Pero kung minalas-malas ka, maaring marami kang classmates na bully, marami kang classmates na hindi helpful. You may have a lot of classmates that won't help you in your education. So, yun. This is just to, again, illustrate na a lot of the things, we don't realize na probabilistic sila, but they are, right? Parang, some of us may call it destiny, may call it fate, may call it luck, but it's the same thing, na it's out of our control. So, yun, hopefully, some of you, after giving those examples, some of you agree to a higher extent that luck indeed affects us more than we realize. Sige, so, with that, ano lang naman to pangdagdag ng appreciation for the talk. So with that, let's proceed with a bit of some technical discussion lang muna. Okay? So we cannot discuss statistics without discussing the technical side. Okay? So let's have a formal definition of probability. So what is probability? Probability is a measure of uncertainty. Okay? It's the measure of likelihood of occurrence of an outcome. Okay? And it can also be defined as the proportion of events occurring given a random experiment is repeated several times. Okay? So, given these definitions, I'm sure familiar naman tayo lahat sa what probability is, right? But given these definitions, I hope you can cement what the definition of probability is in your mind and relate it to what the examples were a while ago. And all of those would involve some measure of uncertainty, right? Some measure of likelihood, and some proportion of events. So let's say may papanganak na person, okay? What is the probability na that person ay mapanganak, let's say, sa Philippines? So, you'll be able to compute that, right? So, you can get yung proportion of events the involving yung event natin, yung definition natin na mapanganak sa Philippines. So, you can get yung number of people giving birth in the Philippines and divided by the number of people giving birth all around the world. That would give you an estimation of what the probability that the next person would be born in the Philippines is. So yeah, something like that. No? And to be more specific, this is the more formal definition of the probability with respect to yung numerical quantities. So we have the number of outcomes for event A, and the total number of outcomes we sometimes call the sample space uh, the in statistics. No? So total number of outcomes applicable the process. No? So this one basic illustration of this is the probability of getting heads when you flip a coin. So what are the outcomes when you flip a coin? It's just heads or tails. So one outcome for heads, one outcome for tails. The probability of getting heads is therefore 1 out of 2. Okay, or if you roll a die, what's the probability that you get an even number? So you have 6 outcomes. That is your denominator, right? And how many of the outcomes are even? So there are 3. Okay, so 3 over 6 would be your probability to roll an even number. So that is 1/2. So that's how you compute for the probabilities formally. But again, some of the probabilities that we encounter in real life, we cannot really compute. Okay? We can estimate, we can do a bit of analysis to parang characterize the distribution, but we cannot really formally compute for the actual distribution, as we will learn shortly. So with this, we transition to the discussion of a priori versus a posteriori probability. Okay? So for a priori, when we talk about methodologies involving the a priori method, we know or we try to come up with a probability distribution based on occurrences, in the independently of the occurrences in the past. So this is not done based on observations. That's the main difference. A posteriori is based on evidence or past occurrences or observation. Okay, so for a priori, we make use of some form of analysis or expertise to do an estimation of the probabilities or the probability distributions of a process we are looking at. While the a posteriori method deals with creating an overall picture of collective occurrences of events under the distribution under investigation. So, ano ang examples to? Okay, so, ayan. So, flipping an unbiased coin. So, without needing to do an experiment, without needing to do it in actuality na flip natin, we can estimate that given any coin, so if you take any 1 peso coin, standard 1 peso coin, 5 peso coin right now, if you have one in your wallet or in your pocket, and you flip it, if you say that 50-50 ang probability ng heads or tails, you would most likely be correct. Okay? By yung standards natin, it's acceptable to say na 50-50 sila. Because likely, if you're holding a standard coin, it's going to be unbiased. Okay? It's not distorted enough to one side to warrant yung bias to heads or tails. Okay? Yeah, so again, that is a priori because even before doing an experiment, we can estimate the distribution. Okay, it's 50-50. Rolling a regular 6-sided die. So given that it's a regular die, so walang even ang weight distribution, no one side is weighted more than the others, then there is no reason for one side to occur more than the others. So again, even before you roll a die, if we know that it's a regular die, we know that 1/6 ang probability of occurrence ng each of the outcomes. Okay, and same with drawing a card from a well-shuffled standard 52 card deck. Okay, so if you would shuffle a deck, okay, and you draw a card, what's the probability that the card is a heart? Okay, so you can I'm pretty sure a lot of you can answer that with it's going to be 4 out of 52 or 1 out of 13. So we can do that even without observing yung outcomes ng isang deck because we can do expert analysis, we can do computations even before the experiment. Okay, so these are the classical examples. If you are attending a stat class, if you are or ako, when I teach yung stat classes ko, these are the classic examples for probability, no, na very straightforward, very apparent yung pag occur ng outcomes natin, okay? And yeah, we move on to yung mga standard, yung mga examples na hindi that standard, pero it's still a priori. So I'm pretty sure we have encountered, most of us would have already encountered at this point, yung weather forecasts nowadays. Okay, dati ang weather forecast lang is sunny, cloudy, but throughout the years, nag-evolve na siya. No? And some of the features of weather forecasts that have been added in recent years, so one would be yung temperature, and actually, it's not just even the temperature, no? So may other measures pa ng temperature. I believe meron just peak temperature. Okay? Pag nandun tayo sa mga in colder countries, you have your temperature, you have your wind chill temperature. So the ranges of the temperature throughout the day. Okay? You have wind speed, you have humidity. And one of the things that personally I find interesting in weather forecasts nowadays is the probability of rain. Okay? So what's the probability that it rains on a given day? So if you think about it, it's quite difficult to do, right? Parang it must be a complicated process. But of course, a lot of data scientists, expert meteorologists are on the team that come up with this figure. Okay? It's not just something that you do without expertise. It would take a lot of analysis na what are the cloud patterns, what are the air current patterns, and temperatures, and how would those influence the probability of raining. So this is one example wherein it's an a priori process wherein a lot of different people put in their expertise, so give inputs with respect to their expertise, and collectively they come up with a figure. Again, it's dependent on a multitude of variables, but there is going to be one figure, say 9%. Ito, in this example, it's 9%. Na magsasabi, on this day, okay, there is a 9% probability of rain. Okay, so itong 9%, again, makikita natin to na maybe there's a large cloud and if it dissipates, hindi siya uulan. But there's a small chance for that cloud to continue growing and develop as rain, as precipitation, or something like that. But yeah, yun, makikita natin that there is a way using expertise, using analysis to come up with a probability. And obviously, this is not based on past observations because it's very difficult to just base it on past observations. Primarily because there are a lot of factors that do not stay constant if you take a look at past observations. So if you take a look at an observation like maybe 3 months ago sa Philippines, okay, iba ng conditions doon. 3 months ago, it's much rainier. Maybe may low pressure area na nagde-develop. So you cannot apply what you found out 3 months ago to your prediction right now. Okay? You cannot directly apply it. So yun, that's something to consider. Yeah, sige. So before we move on, ito actually I find it funny sometimes kasi sometimes yung mga weather forecasts they predict na 100% probability of rain or 0% probability of rain. But then biglang uulan kahit 0% or hindi uulan kahit 100%. So of course, hindi rin naman siya 100% accurate. It's still a process done by humans, no. So yun. Natatawa ako minsan pag nangyayari yan. Pero definitely, this number is based on a lot of factors. Okay. Next would be yung 655 Grand Lotto. Okay. This can also be the probability distribution of this can be determined using the a priori method. You can compute using counting techniques, specifically combination, to get the total number of combinations of numbers that would that you could produce from yung 655 Grand Lotto. There is actually a section later on dun sa applications in the real world for this. So I'll be discussing that in more detail later on. Okay. But yeah, this is one of the things na more apparent, and maybe for some of us, part of our lives. No? I mean, I know a couple of people that na tumataya sa lotto regularly. So perhaps some of you also do. Yeah, next would be stock market analysis. Okay. So yung figures ko pala may credits naman do sa sa dulo. So I just took them from sites that that have expert discussion on each specific topic. Pero yan, for stock market analysis, it's the same thing. Maybe some of you are stock traders, okay? Pero I'm sure you've all heard of yung mga stock traders that take a look at stock signal, okay? Yung signals. So this is one example of a signal, okay, in when dealing with stocks, which is yung flag. Okay? So yung flag is a continuation pattern constructed using two parallel trend lines that mean slope up, down, or sideways, horizontally. So ito, yung mga patterns na to, these are based on parang historical occurrences. Right? Kasi stock market analysis, it's really very complicated. There are a lot of factors to consider. Okay? Pero over the years, ito yung mga nade-develop na tools or signals. So ang sinasabi dito, pag nag-occur tong flag, okay, so let's say a flag with a downward bias, as shown in the figure, okay, shows a break during an uptrending market. Okay, typically the flag's formation is accompanied by declining volume, which recovers as price breaks out of the flag formation. So if may occurrence na ganito, may certain pattern na ganito, there is analysis, okay, that predicts that it would most likely result to something concrete. Okay? So, pag maaaring pag nangyari na to, likely pataas yung stock afterwards. Pag may nangyaring another signal, likely pababa. So, something like that. Okay? So, again, this is something that is probabilistic, that is produced, yung analysis is produced by experts. And so, those are examples for yung a priori method. No? Next would be yung a posteriori example. So, what is a posteriori? It's pretty straightforward. You do the experiment first, okay? You gather data once the outcomes have occurred, and then you create the probability from there. Okay. So one example would be estimating if a coin or die is fair after tossing it several times. So you may be confused. Bakit may a posteriori na coin toss? Bakit may a priori din na coin toss? It depends on the method, how you come up with the distribution. No? So if you try to analyze the coin, the structure of the coin, before flipping it and try to come up with a distribution, then you're doing the a priori method. But if you flip the coin multiple times and produce a distribution afterwards, okay, so flip ko siya, let's say 1,000 times, and 700 times naging heads, 300 times naging tails. Okay, that is yung a posteriori method na, in effect. So, what that would tell us, 700 yung heads, 300 yung tails, is that most likely the coin is not fair. Okay? Masyado siyang malayo sa 50-50. If fair yan, 500-500 yung occurrence. So, maybe acceptable pa yung mga 520, 480, 550, 450, mga pwede pa. But definitely, 700-300 is too far. Okay? To be more to have a more quantitative based decision, you can conduct a statistical test, particularly on proportion. No? Pero yeah, the point really is na you can create yung distribution by taking a look at the occurrence. Okay? So yeah, that is exactly correct, sir. A posteriori is empirical data. Okay, so one thing that is done a posteriori through the a posteriori method, that this really this is parang hindi naman malaking issue, no, pero I find it parang somewhat annoying sometimes na mali yung usage ng mga tao dito sa sa item na to. And specifically, I'm talking about field goal percentage of a basketball player. Okay? Yeah, kung I'm using basketball as an example because I know na maraming familiar with basketball in the Philippines. But if you're not familiar with basketball, it's the same with any other sport. Na it's the frequency of occurrence of something that is deemed successful over the frequency of occurrence of that same thing, pero regardless of the outcome, kung successful siya or hindi. So maybe sa volleyball, it's yung percentage ng serve mo na pumasok. Sa soccer, maybe it's yung percentage ng on-goal kicks mo na pumasok and so on. But it's the same thing. So sa basketball, field goal percentage. So ang field goal percentage sa basketball, okay, it's the percentage of shots that went in. Okay? So percentage of shots that you attempted that went in. Specifically field goals. So ang field goals ay any shot except free throw. So it can be a 2-point shot, it can be a layup, a dunk, or a 3-point shot. Okay. So when you say that, let's say one player, let's say LeBron James, okay, the field goal percentage of LeBron James is 45%. Okay. Yun. When you say that, it's not necessarily correct to conclude that if LeBron James shoots, there's a 45% chance for the shot to go in. Okay? So, it's not necessarily, in some perspectives, that is correct. Okay? Specifically, when you do yung a posteriori na method, no? It may sound correct, pero in reality, it's not. Okay? So, given that 45% ang field goal percentage ni LeBron James, okay? If he shoots a shot, what is the probability of it going in? To answer that accurately, you would need to consider a lot of factors, so many factors. So number one, primarily is maybe, let's take a look at yung side ni basketball player ni LeBron James. Pagod na ba siya at that point where he is going to take a shot? That's number one. Number two, is he on a hot streak? Okay, meaning, has he been shooting well in the game, or may 10 mintis ba siya na, or 10 miss, and he's only taking his 11th shot right now? So that would also influence. Okay, another would be, how good is his defender? Okay, another would be, what type of shot is he taking? Okay, so all of those would influence yung probability, and putting in each piece of information would make your prediction of the probability more accurate. So ang point ko lang dito is, when you have yung mga a posteriori probabilities, okay, you have to be careful when translating them directly to probability. So it's not necessarily correct to do that. Okay, you have to consider a lot of things. So yeah. Okay. So ito kasi yun pala. Yung isa ko palang complete example nito is yung sa I believe it's a YouTube video from I actually think it's from Khan Academy, no, na what is the probability of making 10 straight free throws? So yun, I was able to watch that a few years back, and ito yung parang comment ko na you cannot really accurately claim na ang free throw percentage is the same as the probability of making a free throw. Okay? So if you ang answer kasi doon is what is the probability of making 10 straight free throws? Parang if you're shooting 90% from the free throw line, it's 0.9 raised to 10. But yeah, in reality, it's not that simple. If you actually make one, it would influence your next shot. Okay? It has to do with a lot of things. It has to do with the psychology of the player. If you make a shot, your next shot the probability of it going going in is higher because the player has more confidence, or maybe mas nagsisink in yung muscle memory. Okay? So the probability of the next shot becomes higher. And if you're shooting, let's say, yun nga yung deal, no? You need to make 10 straight shots. If let's say that situation is involves a bet for, let's say, 50 million pesos. Tapos you're the best free throw shooter in the world. But after the ninth straight shot, nag-pause ka na onte, isipin mo, no? If I make this shot, I get 50 million pesos. If I don't, I get nothing. So that's another factor na if you make 9 straight and it's high stakes, the pressure may get to you. Na last shot na to, isa na lang siya, and then you overthink. Tapos, even if you're shooting 90% from the free throw line, it may not be yung probability of going in. It's probably going to be much lower than that. Kasi there are a lot of factors affecting that last shot that did not affect the previous one. So yun. Okay? Yeah, yun nga yung kailangan natin bandayan. Although admittedly, if you're going to estimate a probability, that's the best way to do it, no? Na 0.9 raised to 10. But ang sinasabi ko lang naman is in reality, it's not that simple. So you have to consider a lot more things. Okay? So with this, we transition to chaos, information, and probability. It's very much related to this last example, no, ng shooting sa basketball. So what is chaos, information, and probability? So si chaos, you may have heard it sa chaos theory. Okay, it's a field of study that is parang personally ako hindi naman din ako too familiar with it, pero yeah, it's a very specialized field of study siya. Okay, si information, ito lumalabas to sa probability. So familiar naman tayo dapat dito, but we'll still discuss it a bit. Okay, so let's define what chaos is. Chaos is associated with complex and unpredictable behavior of phenomena over time. This definition is it was taken from the paper of Berliner done in 1992. So chaos theory goes back even as far back as 1992, and I believe even farther back. Okay, so yan, ang sinasabi niya, ang chaos involves a lot of unpredictable, uncontrollable factor, or unpredictable, uncontrollable phenomena over time. So, in order to illustrate this, I would like to ask you a question. Okay? Is a coin flip truly probabilistic, or is it deterministic? Okay? Is a coin flip truly probabilistic, or is it deterministic? So, if you think about it, okay, flip a coin. Okay, what's the probability of it being heads? So it's easy to say it's 50-50, okay? Pero if we're going to be meticulous about it, it's not actually probabilistic, okay? So it's not actually probabilistic. It is so technically the answer is no. But it is determined by an uncountable number of variables that we cannot quantify. So what are those variables? The strength of the flip, the position of the coin, the horizontal and vertical angle of your hand, the position of your hand, the position of your thumb, the position of your finger, the air composition, okay, kung like what percent nitrogen mo siya, parang yung viscosity ng fluid that is air, wind speed at your current location, even the size of your hand, the size of your thumb, the size of your index finger, and so on. Okay, so all of those factors contribute to whether or not the coin will land on heads or tails, or whether the coin will land on heads or tails. No? And all of those, yan yung sinasabi, yung tinutukoy ng chaos. No? That is what we pertain to as chaos. There are so many variables that influence that process. Okay, and each variable has a contribution to the outcome of the process. Now, if we know all the parameters of the process, yun nga, kung gaano kalakas yung pag-flip natin, anong angle ng mag-flip, okay, how to describe the texture of the finger of where the coin is, pati yung composition ng coin itself, okay, when was it made, what percent of each material is it, ano yung center of mass niya, okay, and so on. If we know the value or the values of all those parameters, it becomes a physics problem. Although it's a very complex physics problem, it reduces to a physics problem. That is deterministic. Okay? Pero again, to simplify, since we really cannot determine the values of all those variables, no? Lalo na pag like right now, if you're just going to flip a coin, since all of them have an influence in the outcome, then the process virtually becomes probabilistic. Okay, for all intents and purposes, practically probabilistic. So 50-50 siya. So that is what I want everyone to realize na a lot of the processes that we call probabilistic are actually deterministic, but are too complex to describe. So we just reduce it. We just reduce it to something that is probabilistic. Okay, going back to yung basketball example, or for yung mga hindi familiar with basketball, maybe you can put yourself in a situation in any other sport, no, na uh, recall a time wherein you, like, any given time wherein you had to take a shot, maybe a practice shot, maybe a game winner, maybe a normal shot in the game, sa basketball or sa volleyball, wherein you had to serve the volleyball to the other side of the court. I'm pretty sure when you take a shot, you're not 100% sure that it goes in. Okay? There's always, whether it's a shot that's up close or far, uh, there's always that doubt na may chance to na hindi pumasok. No? In basketball, the probability of it not going in normally normally increases as you go farther from the basket. So let's say you're taking a free throw, simplify things, no? Standardize things. How do you know if the ball will go in or not? So if you're taking a free throw, ako, what I do is, usually mayroon kang procedure na maybe you dribble once or twice, you roll the ball in your hands, you put it in your palm, you lift it, and then you shoot. Diba? So, yung pag-determine kung whether or not papasok yung bola, it's influenced by a variety of factors. Okay? So, one of them would be yung kung I would say primarily yung yung strength of your shot and your angle, the angle of your shot. So if you're able to control that properly, then your shot would always go in. So ang challenge is, how would you control your the force of your shot? So yun naman yung challenge talaga, no? In most of the sports, parang ganun precision or strength. How would you be able to control? How would you be able to exert force na exact? Okay? So that process, again, that is another example of a process that is technically deterministic, but there are so many factors that influence it that we can actually just simplify it to something that is probabilistic. Okay? So what is the point of this, of bringing this up? A lot of processes that we call probabilistic can be somewhat, even partially converted to a deterministic process once we get information, once we specify parameters, once we know the values of the parameters. So, yun yung thing. Okay, so to give a better example of this, again, puro sports tayo, no? Kasi ito yung pinaka, I believe this is one of the easiest ways to illustrate yung concept na to. So let's say you have two teams in a sport, any sport applicable naman to, no? Team A versus Team B. Who will win? Okay? So for our purposes, no, maybe yung mga basketball enthusiasts, you can think of yung maybe last NBA finals or last PBA finals. Last NBA finals, I think, ay Golden State versus Boston, no? So what is the probability of Golden State winning the championship? So if tinanong ka ng ganun, no, what is the probability of Golden State winning a championship? Given na finals na in Golden State versus Boston na lang. That is another example of something that is technically deterministic, but we reduce it to something that is probabilistic, just because there are so many factors to consider. So some of those factors would be, okay, so sa first game, okay, will player A, maybe let's say player A is Steph Curry, will Steph Curry make his first shot? Okay, if Steph Curry makes his first shot, then it increases the overall probability of Golden State winning, right? However small that is, that one single shot affects the overall probability. Next would be, is player Z defending well? So maybe Jason Tatum, is he defending his man well? If yes, that contributes to the probability of Boston winning and decreases probability of Golden State winning, and so on. So is coach one running play X? Is coach 2 ready to counter to this play X? Is player 2 going to be injured? Is player 3 did player 3 get a good night's sleep? such that he's healthy at game day and so on. So all those factors affect yung outcome ng game. And I would like you to consider this illustration. No? So let's say uh, doon sa ano na yun, doon sa situation na yun, Golden State versus Boston. I believe a lot of experts were putting Golden State as the favorite at that point just because of experience. Pero you can think of the skill level to simplify everything. No? I know it's a lot more complicated than this, but let's say skill level of Golden State is represented by this interval. Okay? And the skill level of Boston is represented by this interval. Okay? Itong interval na to it's much wider for Golden State. Okay? Because if they shoot well, okay, mataas yung skill level nila at that day. No? If they shoot well, a lot of their shots are going in. It's very difficult to beat them. In fact, if you compare it to Boston, okay, if Golden State plays its best, okay, Boston, even if it's playing its best, cannot win. Okay, mas mataas yung kay Golden State. But if let's say Golden State is playing mediocre sa mid-level, it's up to Boston to win. So if Boston plays well, mananalo siya. If Boston plays bad, matatalo siya. But since Golden State, ang strategy niya is it takes a lot of threes. If those shots don't go in, if it does not play well, if it plays its worst, whatever happens kay Boston, even if it plays its worst, mananalo pa rin si Boston. Okay? So, yung tinutukoy ko na chaos, okay? Yung numerous variables influencing the outcomes, they would set a certain, let's say, skill level on the game for Team A and a corresponding skill level for Team B, such that it would determine yung outcome. Ayan. So, yun. That is how chaos influences your outcomes. And to counter yung chaos, ito naman ay nabanggit ko na a while ago, we have information. And information makes probability more accurate. So we talked about a while ago yung chance of rain on any given day. Chance of rain, let's say, is 9%. But if in the morning you see that there are a lot of dark clouds, even if 9% lang ang forecast yesterday, you have that information na maraming dark clouds. You can actually more accurately present that the probability is actually up to 90% or 95%. Okay? So chance of a team winning, yun na yung na-discuss ko just now. Chance of a stock increasing in value, it's what I discussed previously dun sa signals. No, na given this signal, there is a high chance that the stock price will increase. The stock price will increase. And so on. And so with that, we now move on to yung probability distributions in everyday life. So ito ay medyo halo-halo na to, no, na some of them would involve yung discussion nga na ginawa natin kanina. Pero there are some here na lang din, direct application of statistics that we can control in life. Ayan. Sige. So this is the first example. Hindi naman ako masyadong halata na basketball fan. Pero yeah. Throughout the years, a lot of people are saying the NBA has changed. Okay? The game has changed. And it's all thanks to this single player, si Stephen Curry. Okay? How did it change? A lot of teams right nowadays are doing are taking more 3-point shots. And mind you, it's not really just due to Steph Curry. No? I believe it's also parang in line with the boom of data science, because throughout the years the NBA has also employed a lot of data scientists, for sports analysis, sports analytics, and they were able to determine, sports analytics was able to determine that 3-point shots really are more efficient than most of the 2-point shots. Or particularly yung mga what we call mid-range. No? So, in the NBA or in any professional league, I would say a good standard for parang above average shooter ng 2-point field goals would be 45%. So if you're shooting 45% sa field goals, okay ka naman. Okay? You're a decent player. Okay? If you get the expected value of this, if you shoot a 2-point shot and 45% ang pumapasok, you're getting an average of 0.9 points per shot. Okay? But if you converted this to a 3-pointer, so a shot that's worth 3 points, even if you only make 30% of your 3-point shots, okay, you would still be as good as the person that shoots 45% from 2 points. Okay? So, yun yung main argument ng sports analytics on the 3-point shot. The 1 point increase, the 50% increase in the points you get from shooting the 3-pointer is pretty much worth the decrease in accuracy. And just to illustrate, again, this is due to sports analytics and statistical applications. This was the shot chart of the NBA, overall NBA, in 2005. And this was 18 years ago, 17 years ago. And this was taken 5 years ago. Although this is for one single team, so it's a bit extreme, pero the overall picture is still the same. So if you try to analyze, nobody takes yung shot dito sa mid-range. So it's either near the shot, wherein your probability of going in skyrockets to maybe 80 or 90%, or you take a 3-point shot that maybe the probability of going in is significantly lower, maybe 30, 40%. But it's okay because you get more points. So itong mga mid-range shot na low percentage pero you only get 2 points, ito yung mga nawala throughout the year. Ayun. So, next scenario, next example of the application of probability in real life is, in yung casino setting, ito kasi talaga is one of the easy examples ng applications ng stat. So, I'll just give one example on this. So, this is yung roulette, okay, for those who do not know. So, I included this in the presentation kasi maganda naman yung lesson. So, for the roulette na game, if you bet on something, if you bet on a single number, and tumama yung number na yun sa roulette, you get 36 times your bet. So, plus 36 ka. If hindi tumama yung number na yun, you lose $1. Okay, so you lose your bet. The thing sa roulette is, may 36 numbers, okay? 36 counting numbers, and may 0. 0 yung color. So si 0 yung parang pang-reset, pang-neutralize, na if you're betting on even, if you're betting on red or black, 0 is not included in any of those classifications. 0 is not treated as even or odd. 0, ang kulay ni 0 usually is green. So, if you try to get your expected value nito, okay, if you win, you get $36. What is the probability that you win? It's 1 over 36. What is the it's 1 over 37 actually, because there are 37 numbers. Actually, ito, yung special kind of roulette na may double zero pa, so mas mababa pa, 1 out of 38. And if you lose, minus 1 ka. What is the probability of that happening? 36 over 37, or yung single zero lang. If you get the expected value of that distribution, that is negative. Okay? So, negative 0.038 ka every roll on average. So, this is what they say when you hear the phrase, the house always wins. The expected value of all games in a casino would be negative. Okay, the house always wins. Kaya sustainable ang pag-operate ng casino because the more people you have playing, okay, kahit yung iba siniswerte, kahit yung iba binamalas, but it will even out in the end. Okay? Law of large numbers dictates that it would always follow or it would most likely follow in the long run yung expected value natin, which is yung house would win 3% of all the bets. Okay, so ang moral of the story, huwag mag-gamble dahil you will lose. This is a statistical fact. Okay, you will lose. Okay? Okay, next. Ito, mas light na setting. Yung deal or no deal. So, this is one of the shows game shows in local TV that would involve actually statistical analysis. Yung iba kasi parang trivia, so general knowledge. Yung iba parang knowledge ng society, so family feud. Pero ito, meron kang statistical analysis dito eh. Kasi this would involve picking a briefcase, for those who are not familiar, no? Picking a briefcase, okay? And parang determining if you're going to stick with that briefcase until the end or you're going to take an offer. Parang a settlement, no? Parang ganun. Si banker, siya yung bibigay sa'yo ng amount to settle with. So it's up to you to take that offer or to reveal yung briefcase mo. And the part that makes this game show exciting is that nire-reveal isa-isa yung mga hindi mo pinili. And technically, that is information that would influence our outcome. So if ang mga na-open ay 1 peso, 5 pesos, 10 pesos, alam mo ang natitira, yung mga malalaking value na, yung mga 100,000, 250,000, and so on. It will help you with your decision. Okay? So yeah, for deal or no deal, siguro ito, no? I can collect yung answers sa chat on what you would do, no? Let's say you are part of this game show. You're the one you're the one deciding, no? And may 3 briefcases left, so meaning may isa kang hawak and you have 2 left doon sa podium. So 3 that are not revealed. And you know for a fact that the amounts in those 3 are 1 peso, 10,000 pesos, and 1 million pesos. Okay, so you have this chance to win 1 million pesos. But the banker is giving you an offer. Take my offer of 400,000 pesos and I will take your briefcase. Hindi mo siya o-open pero you get your 400,000. So sige, maybe I'll ask the audience kung sino yung gusto mag-participate. If you're given this deal, which one would you choose? Maybe I'll give you 1 minute. Deal or no deal? So deal, when you say deal, that would be yung taking the offer of the banker. If no deal, that would mean ba yung that would if you're taking yung no deal, you're sticking with your briefcase. Okay? So yeah, it's very interesting. I would like to say na wala namang correct, like talagang correct answer to this. It would very much depend on your personality and outlook in life, no? Na kung risk averse ba kayo or okay lang kayo with some risk, okay kayo with some excitement. It also has to do with your motivation for joining, like do you really need the money or are you just joining for fun, ganyan. Pero yeah, it's very interesting na if you take a look at the chat, halo-halo yung decisions. Some of them are taking yung deal, some of them are no deal, no? Actually, mas marami yung deal. Statistically speaking, there is a correct answer. Again, statistically speaking, and the correct answer is to take the offer of 400,000. Okay? Bakit? You can get the expected value of this. Yeah? You can get the expected value of this. So 1/3, probability of 1/3 for 1 peso, probability of 1/3 for 10,000, and probability of 1/3 for 1 million pesos. If you get your expected value nito, it would come down to something like 330,000. Okay, 340,000. And yung expected value niyan would be less than the standing offer. So statistically speaking, you should take the offer. Okay, so dapat mag-deal ka. That is the correct decision statistically. Although, maraming different considerations yan. Outside of yung expected value, what you should consider is, if you take the deal, it is 100% certain. You get 400,000. Okay? Itong taas, okay? There is a chance na 1 million, pero may chance din na 1 peso. So, again, it's up to you. So, ako personally, I would take the deal, pero it's not necessarily because of yung yung expected value. Even if you reduce this to 300,000, so, I would say na a lot of people would still take the deal because it's something that's sure. Okay? Parang nandiyan na yung 300,000 eh. Kahit mas mababa yung expected value nun, doon sa if you gamble, there is a chance that you will lose. Okay? So yeah, that's something to consider. Again, being familiar with statistics would aid you in this decision-making process. Ayan. So ito, maybe kung ito lang for permit and time, okay naman ano. But this is definitely something that I wanted to discuss in this talk. Okay. So this sequence, 9, 45, 36, 27, 18, 54, this was all over media, social media. It was everywhere. I believe this was more than a month ago. No? Wherein 433 people won the lottery. Okay? The 655 lottery. So, syempre, ang unang reaction dito, 433 winners. That is impossible. Yung manalo nga yung isa ang hirap, di ba? Parang pag may 655 jackpot, ilang linggo usually bago magkaroon ng winner dyan eh. So, paano nagkaroon ng winner na 400, paano nagkaroon ng 433 simultaneous winners? So, ito, when we take a look at this situation, it's something that we have to investigate before we judge. It's definitely something that we have to investigate before we judge. So, hindi naman siya, if you try to compute for the probability, so what is the probability of a single bet winning the lottery? Okay, since it's the 655 lottery, so 655 means out of 55 numbers, you will choose 6. So what is how many combinations are there? 55 choose 6. I'll double check my computation. How many combinations are there? You have 29 million combinations. Okay? Si 642, malala na yun. Sobrang daming combinations na yun. Lalo pa kay 655. Okay? There are 29 million combinations. Just how many combinations? Gaano karami yung 29 million? If you want, on average, to be able to win the lottery in 50 years, rather. So, kunyari, daily ka tumataya, no? Gusto mo, pangarap mo lang manalo ng loto. And kung gusto mo manalo in the next 50 years, how many lottery tickets do you think you should bet on para mangyari yun? So, I think a lot of people, tatay ko tumataya din, mga, I think weekly, at tinatayaan niya lang mga, I think, 2 tickets, 1 ticket, 2 tickets, tapos yung numbers lang na like age ng, like, kami, magkakapatid, age niya, date ng pinanganak niya. Diba ganun lagi sa, loto dito sa Pilipinas, or even in other countries. So, isa, dalawa. But, on average, if you want to win the lottery in a 50-year time span, you would actually need to buy close to 16,000 tickets a day. Ganon siya kahirap manalo. You would need to buy 16,000 tickets, lottery tickets a day for you to be able to win once on average in a span of 50 years. Okay, and if you think about it, sobrang hirap nun. How were there, or how is it possible to have 433 winners at the same time? Huh? Okay, so is it impossible? That's the main question. No? Is it impossible? The answer is no, because there is actually an assignable cost. So itong yung mentality na impossible to mangyari relies on the assumption that the bettors are betting independently. Okay? That evenly distributed yung pagpili ng pattern, and walang favored na patterns. But there was actually a study by Wang et al. In 2016. You can search it online right now. It's publicly available. This study dealt with yung mga patterns that a lot of people choose, okay, sa loto. So, in this case, sa lottery, if you take a look at yung 655 na ticket ng loto natin, it looks like this. Okay? And if you take a look at the winning numbers, you will see that there is a pattern. So, 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54. Okay? So, ito, the fact that there is a pattern means that there is a higher likelihood for people to choose this specific pattern compared to some other random patterns na, or some other random number combinations na walang pina-form na patterns sa ticket. Okay? So, yun, if you think about it, kung may mga tao na walang mapili, okay, na gusto lang mag-bet, maybe they just blindly chose, okay, gusto ko tong diagonal na to. 9, 18, 27, 38, 45, 54. Okay. So, a lot of people thought of that, evidently, no? And kaya maraming nanalo na 433 people. Okay? So, if you think about it, kung ang winning combination ay, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I would say na there would be even more winners, no? Na if wala kang matayaan, gusto mo lang tumaya na 6, perhaps yun lang pipiliin mo, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe there are thousands of people that were doing that combination. If you wanted if you wanted a combination, let's say 1, 11, 21, 31, 41, 51, first row, that would also, I'm also willing to bet na there were also maybe thousands of people that use this combination as their yung submitted combination nila for this draw. So ano yung nito, no? Ano yung overall takeaway for this? I would say na ito, familiarity with yung statistics is not enough, definitely. Because if you take a look at yung probability itself, probability of one person winning is 1 in 29 million. What is the probability of 433 people winning? It's 1 in 29 million. Okay? This fraction raised to 433. And actually, pag tinry niyan sa calculator, I tried, hindi niya na i-display. 0 na lang talaga. It's that small. Okay? I think when I read yung mga article online na maraming nagbabangkit na you have a higher chance of like getting struck by lightning twice or something like that. No? So, if you assume na independent sila, then it's very, very much impossible. Sobrang baba na probability. But if you consider yung other factors outside of statistics, no, you would see that, yes, it kind of makes sense. So, I'm not saying na, na evident, like, clear as day na explainable. I'm saying na it's not that far-fetched. It's definitely possible. The chance of it occurring is would most likely still be low, but it's not yung absurdly low na parang may may magic. So explainable pa rin siya. Okay? So yun, I would say yun naman yung gusto ko ma-explain dito. And yeah, I have some more examples dito pero I think hindi na natin ma-discuss because So ito, lang to, sige, very quickly lang. So maybe na-experience to kasi ito personally na-experience ko to and it's somewhat related to yung example natin ng deal or no deal kanina. So ito yung situation. To use the Santa Rosa route or the Cavite route. So ito ay routes to Tagaytay, okay? Before the time of Waze, Google Maps, Santa Rosa lang usually ang daan ng papuntang Tagaytay, no? And dahil yun lang yung daan na alam ng mga tao, sobrang traffic siya. Okay? So, yeah. Sobrang traffic siya. It takes 2-3 hours maybe to get to Tagaytay. But nowadays, personally to, based on my experience to, na if we go to Tagaytay with my family, ang binibigay niya na route yung paikot eh. Dumadaan sa mga bayan-bayan ng Cavite. Tapos, lalabas ka sa loob na ng Tagaytay. So, mas mahaba siya, but there's less traffic. So, again, this is, sarili-sarili na lang, no, napiliin nyo. Pero, this constitutes a decision that would involve partially statistics, but would also involve factors outside of statistics, no, na if you consider yung Santa Rosa route, it's a route that's higher variance na if walang traffic, dahil mas maiksi siya, definitely mas mabilis siya. Pero pag naipon yung traffic doon, sobrang tatagal ka kahit maiksi yun. Parang bumper to bumper ang traffic, no? Maybe 1 hour. Ganyan. But if you do yung Cavite, wala masyadong traffic compared to Santa Rosa, but malayo yung ikot. So, if you take a look at the distributions here, statistically, the expected values are the same. Okay? I believe that's 2 hours and 7.5 minutes. But, yung variance ay magkaiba. So, ito na yung mag-involve ng like personality ng yung driver na gusto mo ba yung high risk na pag naipit ka sa traffic talagang matagal? Or gusto mo ba yung kahit malayo, walang traffic and dire-diretso yung biyahe? No? So, yeah. It's another process that wherein statistics would help, but it would involve a lot of factors na outside of statistics. Yeah. So, yun lang naman yung gusto kong discuss sa talk ko, no, and hopefully, after hearing my talk, na ma-realize nyo nga na, ma-realize nyo nga na, na a lot of the things, around us are, probabilistic or stochastic. And yung sinasabi nga sa Hunger Games, I believe, no, na I hope we use yung knowledge natin sa statistics and probability to turn the odds in our favor. Ayan. So yan, thanks everyone for listening, and hopefully may natutunan kayo.
Ayan, thank you so much, Sir Monty, for your very technical talk. Ang naisip ko lang while you were discussing about a priori and priori is stat college times ko noon, and now ngayon na-apply ko na, since nasa DSA tayo, dito Science and Analytics, na-realize ko na dapat pala nag-focus pa more ako sa maths, sa statistics, dahil malaking ROI talaga siya in the long run, since nga lahat ay may math statistics. At even though na lahat kayong probability, just remember everyone na luck favors the prepared. Kahit na probable lahat mangyari, there's a higher chance talaga na pag-prepared ka, ready ka sa mga pwede mangyari sa'yo. So yan, just be ready lang, and para luck will be in your odds. The odds will be in your favor. Ayan. So thank you so much, Sir Monty, again. So we will now proceed to our fourth topic. Ayan. So now, and our fourth topic is about the multiple hats in survey operations. It will be delivered by AVP by Sir Pam Lagria. So here, RV, may we have
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are all doing fine. Again, my name is Raymond Freth A. Lagria, an assistant professor from the Department of Industrial Engineering and Operations Research in UP Diliman. So I have entitled my presentation or talk today as my multiple hats in survey operations. So I'd like to note that this is based on my experience. So there. So a little bit of our outline for this presentation. This will cover the following. A little more about myself, background on survey operations based on my experience, so that you'll know the context of what I am talking about. And then some operational requirements in conducting surveys, even the actual requirements which are considered prerequisite to conducting your surveys. Afterwards, I'll share some experiences, processes, and even some tips regarding the multiple hats I wear during those surveys that I have been part of. I will even discuss how these hats can relate to data science and analytics. Lastly, I can share about the issues I have encountered operationally during the conduct of surveys or even during survey operations. So, but before we actually start, let me talk about some notes first. So, about me again. So, I am a faculty member. I've started teaching in UP Diliman back in 2013 up to present, and one of the projects or opportunities that I have been part of is to work in surveys. I think it was 2000. Even before I started to join the department, I also already worked in surveys around 2011, I think. So during that time, I worked first as a research assistant, then later on became a research engineer, and then somehow I became survey operations supervisor. So these are the responsibilities, started from small to bigger responsibilities across the years. So some notes before I start. Again, this is all about my experience. My experience may be different from the other people's experience or from other operations supervisor in terms of handling surveys. So again, this is how we have conducted our surveys from back in 2011 up to now. So we're still doing it. This is not about what you learn from school and trainings or training from or even from Sparta regarding sampling methods. It's not about sampling methods, how to get the sample size, any sample size calculator, the population, something procedures, etc. So this is not about the technical side of statistics. So this is more of the operational side of doing surveys, which is highly relevant and related to statistics. So this is more on the operations side of service. So the significance of this talk or of my presentation is that, one, if you are curious how survey operations are done, how does one surveyor or poster start a survey, and where did they start from? If there are their starting point, do they get the questionnaires from this office? Do they have an HQ? Do they travel? Do they travel using their own means, etc.? So, what are the daily activities of firms or doing research or surveys? What happens before the questions are asked to the respondents? What happens or how are the questionnaires are made before? And how are they planned? Hopefully, I'll be able to share some insights on these questions. So, let me define some terms first. One, we have here market research. So, market research involves analyzing given market in order to gain insight into buying potential and attributes of the audience for a product or a service. So it's more on the the answers would be coming from an audience, from a target market. Somehow it assures success of a new concept or established product. So it can be applied if you are bringing in a new product or even for existing products or services. It's not only limited to products. It's not even only limited to services. It can even be extended to government. Okay, so how do we perceive the government? How does the target market perceive the government? Which focuses on collecting feedback. So the key term here is feedback from a target audience to understand their demographics, expectations, and needs. So by using these demographics, expectations, and needs, later on, that's where your DSA, data science analytics, come in. Okay, so by getting your data, process them, and analyzing, then you can use everything that you have learned in Sparta. And as a survey, on the other hand, it's not on the other hand, a survey, let's define that, is an investigation of opinion or experience of a group of people based on a series of questions. Now, a survey is simply technically a data collection tool wherein the output data can be processed and analyzed later for generating insights, visualizations, data-driven decisions, or even input to other data collection methods that can also be done. Let me just take note that there are other data collection tools such as FGDs or focus group discussions, which bring together carefully selected group of people who fits the target market. Then an interview is also another data collection tool where it's usually conducted on a one-on-one basis. There are interviews that are structured or even unstructured. Then we also have observations. It's also a method where the person who collects the data. So if I'm the one collecting data, then I just need to take note of the subject while watching or observing the respondents or even the service or the product or how the people relate or react to the product or to the service and other activities. And basically, we just need to record those observations. Okay, so I hope you get the gist of the definition of the survey and market research. But let me just tell you that we're going to focus on the survey itself, and we're also focusing and limiting our scope in this talk to utilities. Okay, so because of why utilities? Because I have been working with utility data since I started working, and utility data would be our primary data, our primary data that we collect in our surveys that I have been part of. So let's define common utilities. These are basic services your home, apartment, or even your business need to keep it comfortable and functioning properly. Example would be water, electricity, natural gas, garbage, internet, phone, security. So examples of utility data for water could be volume or pressure. For electricity, your kilowatt hour. For your natural gas, maybe some volume again. For your garbage, volume again. Internet subscriptions could be speed, etc. Okay. So some of our utilities providers are here, no? So I'm not going to mention each one, but I think you get now the idea of who are the providers of our utilities, and at the same time, what is utility data. Okay? So let me just go back again to the surveys, no? So benefits of the surveys. It helps businesses gain critical feedback from their customer or target customers. So it tries to seek what the current reactions or responses to an existing product, a service, or even a future product or service. So it's not only limited to existing ones. Can also be applied to future or planned release of new products or new services. So this should also allow existing customers to remain happy and get new customers by taking actions based on the insights gathered from the analyzed data, which were also gathered from the survey data, right? So from your survey, from your questionnaires to the survey, and then you have data, you process data, and then you analyze data. So by processing and analyzing your survey data, it's now possible to improve products and services more based on what the market wants or needs. It can also identify the best pricing structure that you can implement later on based on, again, on analyzing your survey data. So what are the basic requirements for conducting surveys? Okay, this is more on, I may have said that earlier, that we'll not be talking about sampling size or sampling procedures, but it's a requirement for conducting your surveys. So these are the requirements, basic requirements for conducting your surveys. First, you have your sampling size. So as we all know, you will need this. There are a number of sample size formulas or calculators that you can use, but you have to be very careful and, of course, consult with a statistician or a statistics expert before you can actually use your sampling size calculator or formula, because it has to be applicable to what you want to do. The sample size also serves as a target number of respondents that your survey operations need. So this is, again, it's a requirement, it's an input. Now, if you have the sampling size, this is what your surveyors will target later on, or what your survey team needs to achieve to be able to be successful in your survey operations. Then you have your sampling method, which covers the probability sampling. Usually, and of course, for a better representation, we usually use a random sampling method to select our respondents. Okay, and then of course, let's not forget the actual questions that we will ask during our surveys. So the questions make up your questionnaire. It's a series. The questionnaire would be a series of questions that you need to ask from your respondents. Of course, I'm not going to go deeper into creating the questions, but there should be people or experts or domain experts in drafting a survey questionnaire in your team. So later on, the questions you must think of those questions. The answers to those questions can be analyzed or processed later on. Okay, so that's the important thing there. Now, in surveys, there are a lot of question types like the Likert scale. There are also open-ended questions which can be analyzed using a text mining method, for instance. So from this basic requirements, what now are the operational requirements that you need, through calls, maybe face-to-face interviews, etc. Okay, so here's a list that I have come up with. Now, other people may have more from this list. Okay, so but I think this should be comprehensive enough. So first, don't forget that you need your enumerators. I usually call them enumerators, but they are actually our surveyors or posters. And then for a more official or standard way of tracking progress regarding the random selection of respondents, maps can be used. Okay, it's also used to be able to take note the saturation within an area. What if the area is already saturated and all of them has already been asked about the survey? Of course, don't forget the printed questionnaires. Of course, there are survey questionnaires now that are inside our digital tools. That's no problem. But most of the time we use paper printed questionnaires. But there's no harm in using digital tools. Okay, it's a lot more. It would save paper and a lot more easier to use. If your questionnaires are printed, then clipboards are needed, even pens also. Don't forget that for enumerators, to be able to work, they need allowance. So that's one of the things that our survey companies are doing. They need to provide allowance to be able to mobilize the enumerators. For a survey such as utility data, we usually need permits to conduct the actual survey from the LGU, barangays, and an endorsement from the utility company. So if you are into electricity data, you must get the endorsement from the electrical company. Okay, and then proof from the firm that they are indeed your employees. So one of these, your IDs for your enumerators. And then screener questions are also important to be able to exclude potential respondents who should not become actual respondents, because you don't want your answers from your respondents to be biased. So they can be this can be, you may want to eliminate family members of the utility company or members of the firm conducting the survey. You may exclude them, not eliminate, exclude them from the survey because they may provide bias in their answers. And then lastly, one of the more critical requirements would be the insurance for your enumerators in case of accidents. Okay, so that's actually an important thing. Some enumerators don't want to go into the field without insurance. Right? And then, so in general, I've come up with this three major processes that cover the survey, especially in conducting the actual survey in a day, no, or in a month, for instance. So first, you have your orientation and then training. The introduction or description or purpose of the surveys are introduced to your enumerators. Of course, in that point, no, there are firms who have their own enumerators already, so there's no need for hiring. But for projects that are survey-based and then they need to hire more surveyors or enumerators, then hiring is also a process here. You need to hire your people who will actually conduct the survey. Then detailed discussion of the question is done for the enumerators to be familiar and be their own experts in asking the questions. So they need to be familiar with the questionnaires so that they will not be missing some questions and be able to come up with follow-up questions. And then after training, assignments can be done. Sometimes, in our case, we do it by pair or individually. And it usually depends on the sampling size and area. Sometimes also a setup in a specific area, you have a team of 5 enumerators. One is a team leader and then the others are go by pair. So sometimes also detailed planning for the assignments are actually needed. For instance, a pair needs to get this target number of respondents, but they need to reach a quota for the day. So they would also need to get respondents from another place. So logistically, you need to think of how the enumerators will go from one area or from one barangay to another barangay, and so forth and so on. And then, of course, the questionnaires are then prepared or provided for the actual survey. So they need to bring the questionnaires, even if it's in paper mode or in digital mode. So again, there are some details that revolve around choosing the respondents. Well, for one, if you have an existing list, then it's just easier to select randomly from the actual list. So that's what you actually need to do in probability sampling. So you need to have your number of sample size, and then by doing probability sampling, random sampling, then later on you will have to choose randomly. So using a method or a tool in selecting from your list. So let's say you need 384 respondents. If you have 5,000 in a list, then you need to have a way to randomize all of those 5,000 respondents. Okay, but that's only if you have a list. Now, then if you have a list and then selected 384 from it, then you just need to plan the sequence of the respondents. Which is the first one who will be which enumerators who will go to this area and then cover these respondents. Okay, but in some cases, what if your method is to select certain respondents in an LGU or in a city or in a barangay? That can also happen, right? There is but because what if you don't have a list, then you need to randomize across a certain area. Okay, so there is great significance in planning out the most detailed operation during the enumeration or the actual survey. So the nitty-gritty of planning comes in. Okay, so it has to be coordinated with your members of the team and of course your surveyors. So questions such as how to get to the area, who are the target respondents, how to choose the respondents, how to approach the respondents, what to do before the survey need to be planned out and then detailed in answering this, so that your enumerators will have efficient and effective running of conducting the actual questions. So in that sense, it also depends on the survey expert from your firm or your project or your company, what is the prescribed method in getting respondents. Okay, in my case, we have statistician, and then some experts in the field. So we talk about it, how we get how do we actually randomize the selection of our respondents if we don't have a list. Okay, so how about on the day of the actual conduct of the survey? The enumerator, I have this process flow diagram here, where for the enumerator, first gets the questionnaire, or it's provided to them. Now, if you assume that the sampling method is to find an n number of respondents in the area, then there should be a starting point. So usually, in my experience, a starting point can be a church of the barangay or of the town, a plaza, the barangay hall, or any point that your project team has agreed upon. Or it can be arcs, okay? Arcs of the barangay or the place. So after that, the enumerators should know how to randomize. So they should be taught, they should be trained in selecting your respondents randomly. Okay, especially again without a list. And then select the respondent. So the actual interview after that comes in. They usually introduce themselves, introduce the project or the questionnaire or the purpose of the survey, and then ask some screener questions. In some cases, sometimes they introduce their names first and then ask the screener questions so that they can weed out if the potential respondent can be an actual respondent. So if the respondent passes the screener questions, then the actual conduct of that interview or survey is conducted if the respondent agrees to be surveyed or to be interviewed. Okay, so after the conduct of the survey interview, then the enumerator marks the progress. Then at the end of the day or at the enumeration day, she reports the number of outputs to the supervisor. So if you have a target, let's say 400 respondents for a particular place, the output for a certain day adds to that target. It subtracts the number of target already, because if you are able to get 10 respondents, then you just need 390 more. Okay, so that's it. This is how you would do it in the actual conduct of the operation for the enumerator. If the survey runs, let's say over a period of 1 month, then these are all collected on a periodic basis. The actual outputs, may it be daily or weekly, and then these are then encoded. So the answers from your questionnaires, even if you have a digital form of your questionnaire, then that's actually easier, because since it's already digital, then I would expect that it's already connected to a database, or at least you can upload your data directly to a table format. Okay, so it's easier to analyze later. So if the survey medium is already digital, then there's no real need for encoding, but cleaning and verifying the answers are really important. So now, what then are my multiple hats that I usually wear during survey operations? So I have talked about the whole process. What do the enumerators do, and then how are the answers recorded in our in your encoding system. Okay, so after the survey, there's also a need to verify and validate. Okay, and then after that, meaning when you say verify and validate, you need to be sure that your enumerators did actually survey the place. Okay, the respondents are actually real. Okay, so sometimes there's a process called verification. No, so we need to sometimes we also randomize calling some places or calling from the actual list of the respondents, and then later ask them if they were actually interviewed. So there is another person that does this, but sometimes it's not needed. Of course, if we have full trust in our enumerators, and then of course after that we encode and we clean, process, analyze, and then later on generate insights. So the first hat that I wear during survey operations is being what we call as a data engineer. So I usually plan and then design input, the output, and the in-betweens here. So I need to think of how to create a system in encoding the data, how to store the data in the database, and also if you have a developer for encoding for your encoding system, then there should be proper coordination. You try to answer the question, how to answer the questionnaire or encode answers in your encoding system more efficiently. Okay. I also plan and design how the data storage looks like according to the intended output application, such as your variables, which tools to be used in processing. Are you going to use Excel? Are you going to use R or Python, etc.? So, are you going to download your data from in a CSV file or any other format? So you should also ensure that data types that go with the data input forms. Let's say you have your birth date, you have birth date field, address, name, other questions. They need to be thought of, no, right? The data types for them needs to be planned and detailed so that the encoding would be, or not only encoding, even the checking and then validating the answers is easier and more efficient at in processing them. So it is important to work harmoniously with the developer and the data analyst. Okay, but sometimes one of my multiple hats is actually being the data analyst. So I'll discuss this later. Let me just continue on being a data engineer. As a data engineer, we also need to think of the following questions. How to make it easier for the data analyst to process and data later on. How to make it so you should not be thinking only of the actual conduct of the survey, not only thinking of the data inputs, but you need to think of the end goal. How are you going to process such data so that you'll know how to store it, right? How to make it easier for the data analyst to present data, okay? How to convert it into a visualization. Visualization covers charts, figures, and even tables. How to verify and validate data needs to be thought of, okay? Because one of the helpful things that I have encountered before is that you teach your encoders or even your enumerators to verify and validate the data so that there would be less errors in encoding or even in recording the answers. Okay, so here, siguro an example of the in-betweens. If the survey form looks like this, let me just annotate. If the survey form looks like this, you have your first name, last name, street address, and the city and the province, then it's actually easy. This is actually an easy one. You just need to convert that into a table in your database. First name is just one field, last name another field, street address, street address line 2, city and the province could have their own columns in your database, right? Now, what if your questionnaire have multiple answer questions such as this customer satisfaction survey? So in this case, you have this question wherein you can select all that apply. So the question on describing products could have multiple answers here. The data model for the data storage system needs to be thought of. I would say because you will be incorporating many answers in one column, right, or in one variable. So similar to this, where the multiple answer question could be stored in this way. We can store this one. We can do this. I think I'm not sure if Google Forms is doing this, but Google Forms has this CSV file where you download the file. It becomes the multiple answers, allowed multiple answers from a question will be separated by a semicolon, but it's only under one column. Okay, so this is going to be problematic later on in our data cleansing, but of course, if you don't have a choice, then you still need to process this and then clean this, right? But this can also be translated into this format, wherein there should be a check on each in each selection that you did. So if you have one respondent here and then one respondent here, no, so that refers to a single respondent, then she answered reliable for this, and then unique. Then there's just an indicator here. It could be one, could be true, just to indicate that these are the two answers coming from a single question. That can be done. Okay, so you need to think of such methods of designing your data storage for your survey. Okay, so next, that's about it for being a data engineer. Now I have this role also as the operations supervisor. So during, let's go back to the 1 month period of the survey earlier that I have mentioned as an example. So you start, let's say, January 1, you end at January 31. So what happens in all those 31 days? What do you do? Do you just wait for data? Do you just wait for your enumerators to come and finish the survey? No. Okay, there are a lot of activities, tasks, issues, concerns that you need to take care of across on each day. So every day you need to be attentive, and you need to be working on those questions or concerns there. So first, I handle all concerns and issues raised from the field enumerators in real time. So if there's a question, let's say there is a special case from the area that they can't that the respondent asks from the surveyor or from the enumerator, but the enumerator does not know how to answer such question, then that's a time where the enumerators call me for advice. Okay, so I also ensure that assignments of respondents would be according to the sampling plan, the size, and then the sampling procedure. Also, I verify authenticity of the survey responses. Sometimes I do it. I call, if I get outputs today, I get 30 output or 30 respondents, 30 questioners answered. So I call them the next day. Some of them, no, siguro mga 1 out of 30 or 3 out of 30, just to check if they were answered. But of course, there's a more reliable method in doing that. Okay, and I also ensure that all logistical requirements are available, such as permits, IDs, etc. Okay, so how about during the actual survey operations? So this might be one of the most stressful points of the survey operations, because there are a lot of difficulties, a lot of challenges. Okay, you don't know what's going to happen in a survey day. Okay, I have been part of surveys since 2011, so I think that's more than 10 years already. And by doing surveys, I still learn a lot. There are still new learnings on each survey. There are different cases on each survey. So even if I already did that for more than 10 years, I still learn more. No, so because the field, the environment is actually dynamic. You aren't sure what's going to happen, etc. So such as we have the following, no, such as issues here. We have rejection. So what if the respondent does not want to be interviewed? So that's actually -1. potential respondents. So that's actually impediment to your progress in a survey day. You also have irate respondents or annoyed respondents. So if your respondents become irate or naiirita na sila because there are a lot of questions, then it's possible that they want to stop the survey. Then that's going to be a problematic survey also. Then exclusive villages has been my thorn ever since. They actually disrupt the exclusive villages can actually disrupt the random sampling method that you are implementing, because sometimes you cannot enter these villages and most probably will not get representation from them. So if you don't get uh the uh the qualified or the target representation from, let's say, class A and B, then your survey might be biased against class C, D, and E. Okay, so that's possible. Disruptive interview. If the respondent needs to go and does not finish the survey, it always happens. This happens always. We also have pasaway enumerators where being pasaway can range from not doing their actual jobs properly or lying in the survey. Up to this day, I'm still encountering such enumerators. So some output-related incidents, such as quota, is not being reached by enumerators due to the difficulty in the area. Of course, not all areas will be conducted by using an ocular, ocular process on the area. So hindi lahat ng areas mo ocular natin. So there might be some areas which cannot be accessed, inaccessible due to road repair, etc. So that might impede our enumerators in reaching their quota. And of course, the weather, it's going to bite you, because it always from my experience, it's going to halt your survey. Let's say you have a heavy rain, you did not you did not get the forecast for the next day, but it rained so hard, then it's going to be a problem in finishing the quota or reaching the quota for the actual survey day, for the day. So what if you have strict deadlines? Then it's going to impede achieving your deadlines. And of course, one of the major things that happened in recent history is the pandemic, that actually impede a lot, majorly our survey operations in 2021. So, and of course, let's not forget the accidents that could happen to our enumerators. Okay, so that's it for the actual conduct of the survey. Now, after that, so you started with the planning, being a data engineer. Next, you have the operations supervisor during the actual conduct of the survey. What about after the survey? So my hat would be an encoding supervisor. So I plan the conduct of quality assurance of the forms, ensure encoders are able to discern data veracity or accuracy, and then work with problematic answers. Okay, so there could be problematic answers such as inconsistent answers. Your birth date, for instance, is 1990, but there's a question there of age. The age is more than 40, so it's going to be problematic. But don't worry, sometimes you don't actually ask for the age. It's more of the birth date for it to be calculated later, for the age to be calculated later. And then after being the encoding supervisor, I also become a data analyst. So, but a quick recap on what a data analyst do. First is exploratory data analysis, EDA. Data cleansing is also part of the job of data analyst. It can also be a part of the job of the data engineer. Discover patterns using statistical tools, and then of course create visualizations from your survey data. So in my case, in my experience, during as a data analyst and during the after the survey, I do a lot of data cleansing. Sometimes I need help, so we sometimes hire some research associates or research engineers to help me in cleaning your data. So it takes about 80% of the time to cleanse your data, and you need to accept the fact that every day is not Christmas Day, and data at its rawest form or raw form will always be dirty. Okay, I have not seen, at least in my experience, that there are data that is 100% clean. Just to share, there's this one survey project that I have been part of. I'm not going to name the involved parties, but it was promised in the contract. I was just hired as a data analyst, but it was promised in the contract that the survey company or the people collecting the data will provide me. They will be working on data cleansing also, so they will provide me with 100% clean data. But even that promise or even that clause in the contract, it also failed. So in the end, I also cleaned the data that they have provided me. Supposedly, it's already clean data. So it still happens. No? So I just need to accept that. It's not going to be clean always. Even if I've cleaned the data, you're not still sure that you have cleaned it 100%. Okay, so that's why there is room for error. Okay, so there's room for error there. Okay, so you also need to take note of data verification and validation. So for instance, if question number 5 asks the question, how often is your utility downtime? So let's say brownout or blackouts. So the answer of the respondent is none in the past 6 months. But his or her answer on speed or power experienced during a particular period of time is can't say, because sometimes there is no connection. So, or there is no power, or there's no electricity. So that's going to be inconsistent. So it's going to be problematic because it's you are not sure which is true here. Is it number 5 or is it number 9? So you need to be able to discern such inconsistencies in your survey data. Okay, and personally, as a data analyst, I have the following tools. I am not going to exclude here MS Excel because that's really one of the most useful things. And then if I have data more than 1,000 rows, I usually use R and R Studio. And then for visualizations, if I need quick visualizations, I use Excel. But if I need better visualizations, I use Tableau. Okay. Some others may ask what I am not using Python. Sometimes I use Python, but in surveys, using spreadsheets and then R. So to be honest, mas mabilis ako mag-work, no? So it's personal naman siya. But you can also use Python naman. There's no problem in it. Okay. So how about during EDA? Okay, so during EDA or exploratory data analysis, you need to present or generate descriptive statistics such as how many are male and female, average family income, or utility cost per month. So that could be some of the questions that can be answered with aggregated or processed data. And then analysis can also be done for correlation using correlations. Usually we use Spearman's correlation for Likert scales. Kasi pag Likert scales naman, hindi applicable yung other type of correlation natin. So regression, if you want to have a model for relationships within your data, trends plus forecasting is also one of the things that I did. And then of course, visualization. And sometimes my work as a data analyst is extended to presenting my insights, my analysis to the stakeholders, which is usually not really part of my job as a data analyst. So at that point, no, you can present and then relay insights to your stakeholders or even to your own immediate supervisor. The immediate supervisor can relay the insights to the stakeholders. And then you need to ensure the efficient use of charts. And last but not the least, and I have to be very honest with you, there are stakeholders or clients that actually need a lot of data tables. Okay, so it's not during survey. Some stakeholders need tables because they want to have a detailed details of the aggregated or processed data across their selected categorizations or areas. Okay. So, at the end of the day, you should have, during survey operations, there has to be detailed planning, which should be agreed and discussed by survey experts, data analysts, stakeholders, enumerators, and other members of your project team or your survey team. For any role that you do in a survey, you have to work with the data analyst, developer, database designer, main sponsor, encoders, and enumerators. So kahit anong role, mas maganda if you have harmonious working relationship and coordination among all your members. Last but not the least, quality and quantity always. I'm not going to say quality over quantity first. Quality first and then quantity, or quantity over quality. For me, other people, other experts may have their own might have their own take on this, but for me, it's going to be quality and quantity. So it's equal. These two terms will be equal in surveys. Quality of answers at the same time, the target number samples, need to be achieved. Okay, so that's it. Thank you for listening. I hope you have learned something from me today. If you have questions, sorry, I will not be able to answer them directly now, but if you have questions, you can send me an email through my you can send me an email, no? So my email address will be provided by the organizing team from for this presentation. So thank you and take care.
Ayan, so that surely was an informative talk from Sir Pam. Hopefully we all learned a lot, not just from his video, but from all our four amazing speakers today. So let me recap. There's Miss Aromin, Miss Postoledo, Sir Lorenzo, and the latest being Sir Lycayan. So ayun. So in this juncture, we are requesting everyone to turn on their cameras to our usual event photo op. So kung kaya, please turn on your videos. Let us wait some more time for everyone to prepare their best smiles. And please refrain from chatting while photo taking is ongoing. Wala po muna sana mag-chat kasi po nakukuha sa screen capture yung chat. So kung kaya po mag-on ng cameras, mag-on po tayo for this moment, photo op. Patanggal po yung screen share, Karen. Ayan, thank you. So may I call on Miss RV Cayabyat to take the photo. On your cue, RV.
Okay, thank you, Arvil. So we have only 2 pages here today. So on my cue for the first page, you can still open your cameras po. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, for the next page, 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, back to you, Arvil.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, RV, for that. For the evaluation form, you may refer to the chat box. Team, can you share the link? Here. Nasa chat box na po yung link for the evaluation form. Please do not forget to fill the evaluation form as much as possible. Sana po within the day before 12 o'clock tonight. So yeah. So yeah po. So please save the link. Yeah. And again, I am Arvil Armedilla. It's been a pleasure to be your host for today. This is the end of today's webinar, and thank you guys. Ingat and keep learning. Again, ito po yung eval form. Again. Follow-up ko lang po kung meron pa si Mr. Robin Campilo, yung winner kaninang umaga, kahit i-email mo po for the prize. And for Mr. Patrick, we will give to the prize either today or